fact that whatever we feed our minds is what our minds reproduce. And we know by now, by neuroscience and all of that, our neurons grow over time. And whatever we practice is what's gonna grow the most. That's why athletes, right, if they practice their sport, they get really good at it. And people become professionals or mathematicians. The more math they do, the better they are at it. So the more we think about an identity we have, for example, let's say a cranky identity, the more cranky we are going to become. And if we feel and if we identify with being that kind of person, the only thing we're going to do is to reinforce that. And those cells in your brain, I assure you, are going to grow, and they're going to create this whole personality that is very difficult to get out of. So I think one of the things that are very important is the habits that we create. And I like to think about negative thinking as a bad habit. It's just a bad habit that we can change when we have a negative thought. And it doesn't mean to be positive about everything. I don't believe in being absolutely positive. There are very bad things in the world that we need to be paying attention to, and we can't live like, oh, no, everything is fine and nice. But if we turn things around, maybe our brains can start thinking differently. And, that takes a lot of practice. Personally, it's taken me many years to switch some of my regular mental patterns, and they come back on their own. They're really, really hard to get rid of. So, and I'm not here to talk about me, but one of the things I did about 2 years ago was to start turning any negative phrase I saw into a positive statement. And that really worked to some point, but I still get some negativity coming from my head, just to be absolutely honest with all of you. It takes a lot of practice, and it's, I guess the journey is what we need to enjoy. So here are a few of other myths. For example, that self-care is selfish. When I'm taking care of myself, I'm being selfish, and a lot of people feel like that, right? If I'm going to the gym, or if I'm taking time off from work without answering the phone, I'm not caring for others, therefore I may be selfish. And a lot of these messages are the messages that we receive growing up. Kind of like, oh, you only think about yourself, or you think, you don't care about your family, and things that are kind of passed on from generation to generation. I keep telling my brothers every time they say things like that, you're talking like an old person, but you don't have to think that way. The other one is that self-care is just for women. Like, I think that a lot of the practices that we talk about on self-care are things that people relate immediately with women. And there may be a reason for that, because as we saw before, there was started with the women movement, right? And probably because women were taking care of a lot of things, including their families and their kids. Traditionally, I'm not saying that men don't do it, but traditionally, women tend to take care of their families. That's how the roles kind of got divided as humanity evolved. And so, maybe it could be, but men need self-care as much as women. Okay, this is a good one. Self-care is doing anything that makes you feel better. So, a lot of people think about drinking alcohol or using substances as self-care. And so it is an easy way to get home and relax, but then at the same time, it's not good for your body, right? And when we are using substances, what we are doing is avoiding the feelings that we have to deal with. And eventually it doesn't get any better. It takes a big toll on our bodies. So I'm not against using substances. I drink my glass of wine, of course. But what I'm saying is, shouldn't be considered necessarily a way of self-care. The next one is, you have to earn the right to practice self-care. That's absolutely, a no-no. And self-care requires resources that you don't have. So there are many times in which we think about having to go to a yoga class and pay for a membership, or having to take a meditation class, but it's not necessarily what it is. So no, it's not necessary. And one of the things that keeps us from doing self-care is that we tend to think it's this very complicated thing that we need to do, and that we need all this time in the day. And sometimes the things that we can do for ourselves can be very short to the point and incorporate into our daily routines. Another one is that the effects of self-care are temporary. Another belief. Not necessarily, they build onto another. So yeah, you go and get a massage, and then the next day your back hurts again.
That's a chiropractor.
But there is different components of self-care, and the way I like to think about it is the body, the mind, and the spirit. And the more you do self-care and things that are good for yourself, they will build onto your previous history of doing self-care and build that, kind of resilience and that knowledge that you're taking care for yourself. So some things may be temporary for the moment, but as you build them on, the more they will accumulate throughout your life. Self-care takes too much time, and self-care is optional. I think that's a huge myth, especially for people that are helping others. To think that it is optional to take care of yourself is a great mistake, because if we don't take care of ourselves, then we won't be able to help anybody else. So I'm not gonna use the put the mask on yourself, because everybody uses that analogy. So yeah. I'll skip that one. Everybody knows to put their mask on themselves.